One of the first and most revealing reactions a narcissist experiences after prolonged no contact is shock. Not sadness in the ordinary sense, not heartbreak in the way healthy people describe loss, but shock rooted in the sudden collapse of control. To understand this, we have to separate love from possession, because narcissistic attachment is often less about connection and more about access. Access to your attention, your emotional reactions, your forgiveness, your predictability. When that access disappears, the narcissist is not simply missing a person, they are confronting the disappearance of a system that once stabilized their identity. For many narcissistic personalities, relationships function like mirrors. They do not always know themselves through inner stability, values, or emotional depth. Instead, they know themselves through reflected responses. If you admired them, they felt important. If you feared them, they felt powerful. If you chased them, they felt desirable. If you defended yourself, they felt significant enough to provoke emotion. In this sense, your reactions became part of the architecture of their self-image. Now imagine what happens when the mirror goes dark. No contact creates a psychological vacuum. The messages stop. The emotional supply stops. The reassurance that they can reach into your world and alter your state of mind stops. What often follows is not graceful acceptance but agitation. This is why many narcissists react with visible confusion, sudden anger, or bizarre attempts to test whether they still matter. They may send a casual message months later, create indirect social media signals, or ask mutual acquaintances about you. To an outside observer, these actions can look like longing. More often, they are measurements. They are checking whether the control channel is still open. There is also a deeper insult embedded in no contact. It removes the narcissist from the center of the narrative. Narcissistic psychology depends heavily on perceived centrality, the belief that they are the axis around which others rotate. When you withdraw and continue living, healing, growing, and functioning without them, it creates a painful contradiction. You become evidence that they were not as necessary, powerful, or unforgettable as they believed. That contradiction can produce rage, not always explosive rage. Sometimes it is cold rage. Smear campaigns, passive aggression, subtle sabotage, performative happiness, sudden public success displays, these are all ways of restoring wounded status. If they cannot control your emotions directly, they may attempt to control how the story is perceived. This is why prolonged silence can provoke more reaction than confrontation ever did. Conflict still centers them. Silence erases their role. There is another layer people often miss. No contact forces stillness, and stillness is dangerous for someone who relies on distraction and external validation. Without constant reactions from others, unresolved shame can rise to the surface. Emptiness can become audible. Many narcissists spend years outrunning this internal void through stimulation, admiration, chaos, or conquest. Your absence may not create that emptiness, but it can expose it. This is why no contact is so powerful. It is not punishment, it is clarity. It removes the fog of constant engagement and reveals what was actually holding the dynamic together. Often, it was not love. It was dependency, manipulation, routine, and intermittent reinforcement. And for the person who left, understanding this matters. Their shock is not proof that they cared deeply in a healthy way. Their anger is not proof that you did something wrong. Their confusion is not proof that you owe them explanation. It is often the natural reaction of a person who mistook access for intimacy and control for connection. When someone panics because they can no longer reach you, they are telling you what they valued most, not your heart, but the handle they had on it. After the initial shock begins to settle, many narcissists move into the next predictable phase, attempts to reestablish contact. This is where people often become confused because the return can look convincing. It may arrive as apology, nostalgia, curiosity, concern, or even sudden humility. But if you study the pattern rather than the performance, a different picture emerges. In many cases, the goal is not reconciliation. The goal is re-entry. To understand this, we need to recognize that narcissistic behavior is often strategic rather than relational. Healthy people reach out to repair connection, accept responsibility, and build trust through consistent change. A narcissistic individual often reaches out to test access, restore influence, or confirm that the emotional door is still unlocked. The message itself is less important than the response it generates. This is why the outreach can take many forms. Sometimes it is direct. I've been thinking about you, Doc, and we talk. I miss what we had. Sometimes it is vague enough to create curiosity. Hope you're well. Random question. Need your advice on something. Sometimes it bypasses you entirely through mutual friends, family members, or online activity designed to be seen. A sudden like on an old photo, a symbolic post, a story that seems crafted for your eyes. These are not random acts. They are probes. Think of it as sonar. They send signals outward and wait to see what echoes back. If you respond emotionally, whether warmly, angrily, defensively, or even with confusion, they receive confirmation. They still occupy space in your nervous system. They can still alter your state. To a narcissistic mind, negative attention can be as useful as positive attention because both prove relevance. This is why some people are startled to find that even hostility from an ex seems to energize the narcissist. Conflict is contact. Reaction is reward. There is also a timing element that matters. Narcissists often reach out when they sense vulnerability. Holidays, birthdays, late nights, moments of grief, personal milestones, or periods when they believe loneliness may lower your defenses. They may also return when another source of validation has failed. What looks like destiny is often opportunism. What looks like sudden emotional awakening may simply be scarcity management. Now, this does not mean every former partner who reaches out is narcissistic, nor does it mean people cannot change. Genuine remorse exists. Real growth exists. But authentic change has identifiable markers. Accountability without excuses, patience without pressure, consistency over time, respect for boundaries, and a willingness to hear pain without becoming the victim. Without those elements, words are usually theater. Many people get trapped because they mistake intensity for sincerity. A dramatic apology, tears, grand promises, passionate declarations, these can feel persuasive because they create emotional momentum. But sincerity is measured less by what is said in a charged moment and more by what is sustained in ordinary moments. Narcissistic outreach often burns bright and fades fast once access is restored. This is why boundaries matter so deeply after no contact. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are filtration systems. They separate information from manipulation, remorse from performance, and connection from control. If someone truly values you, your boundary becomes a guide they respect. If they only value access, your boundary becomes an obstacle they resent. And notice what happens when access is denied. The mask may slip quickly. Charm can become irritation. Longing can become accusation. Tenderness can become contempt. That rapid shift tells you the original motive more clearly than any message ever could. The deeper lesson here is philosophical as much as psychological. Not everyone who returns comes back for you. Some return for the version of themselves they were able to be around you, powerful, admired, centered, indulged. They miss the supply, not the soul. So when the knock comes at the door you fought hard to close, ask one question before you answer: do they want to love you, or do they simply want access again? When attempts to re-establish contact fail, many narcissists shift into another highly predictable pattern: image protection and blame shifting. This is where the battle often moves from the private relationship into the public narrative. If they can no longer control you directly, they may try to control how you are perceived. And for many people, this phase can be just as damaging as the relationship itself, because it attacks reputation, confidence, and social stability. To understand why this happens, we have to understand the role of identity in narcissistic psychology. A healthy person can tolerate being imperfect. They can admit mistakes, feel discomfort, learn, and repair. Their self-worth may bend, but it does not collapse. A narcissistic personality often operates differently. The external image is not just important, it is structural. It functions like scaffolding, holding together a fragile internal sense of self. If that image cracks, shame floods in. And shame is the emotion narcissists work hardest to avoid. So when no contact continues, when reconciliation fails, when they cannot regain influence, they are forced to confront an intolerable possibility. Maybe they were the problem. Maybe they were rejected. Maybe they are not as blameless, desirable, or superior as they believed. Rather than metabolize that truth, many redirect it. They export the blame. This is why you may suddenly hear distorted stories. You were crazy, cold, abusive, ungrateful, obsessed, or unstable. Notice how often these accusations mirror the very behaviors they displayed. This is not accidental. Projection is one of the most common defenses in narcissistic behavior. They take what they cannot bear within themselves and place it onto someone else. It is psychologically efficient. If you carry the label, they escape the burden. There is also a strategic reason for smear campaigns. If they sense that others may hear your side, they try to inoculate the audience first. By planting doubt early, they create confusion later. This is why some narcissists seem strangely proactive in telling everyone their version of events. They are not merely venting, they are managing perception. And perception is currency. Many survivors make a painful mistake here. They rush to defend themselves to everyone. They try to correct every rumor, answer every accusation, expose every lie. This is understandable, but it can become a trap. Narcissists often thrive in chaos because chaos keeps attention centered on them. If they can pull you into endless rebuttals, they remain the gravitational center of your life. That does not mean you should never speak. It means you should speak with strategy, not panic. Calm truth carries more weight over time than frantic defense. Stable behavior dismantles false narratives more effectively than emotional combat. People who matter tend to notice patterns. Those committed to misunderstanding you are rarely persuadable anyway. There is a philosophical lesson hidden here. Character and image are not the same thing. Character is who you are when no one is watching. Image is what people think they see. Narcissists often invest heavily in image because it can be engineered quickly. Character takes time, humility, and consistency. When pressure comes, image management intensifies precisely because character cannot be borrowed at the last minute. This is why some narcissists appear charming, generous, or composed in public while behaving cruelly in private. Public behavior is performance optimized for witnesses. Private behavior reveals values. And when no contact removes private access, public theater may become their final stage. Your task is not to outperform them. It is to outlast the illusion. Stay steady. Keep records where necessary. Protect your legal and practical interests. Share your truth selectively with people who have earned trust. But do not sacrifice your peace trying to win over every spectator. Some audiences are addicted to drama and cannot recognize integrity until much later. In time, patterns expose themselves. The person who constantly needs villains eventually reveals the common denominator. The person who must rewrite every ending eventually shows why every story breaks. So remember this, when someone works harder to control the narrative than to correct their behavior, they are confessing more than they realize. When shock has passed, contact attempts have failed, and the public narrative has been managed as much as possible. Many narcissists move into the final predictable stage, seeking new sources of validation. This is where people often feel replaced, discarded, or erased. They see the narcissist suddenly attached to someone new, posting happiness, performing intimacy, or appearing completely unaffected. To the person who endured the relationship, this can feel brutal. But to understand it clearly, we need to separate appearance from psychology. For many narcissistic personalities, relationships are less about mutual growth and more about emotional supply. Supply can come in many forms: admiration, attention, dependency, sexual interest, status, obedience, envy from others, or the thrill of being pursued. When one source disappears, the internal need does not disappear with it. It simply searches for another outlet. This is why some narcissists seem to move on with startling speed. What looks like healing is often substitution. What looks like resilience may actually be avoidance. Healthy grieving requires introspection. It asks difficult questions. How did I contribute? What patterns must change? What pain am I carrying? Narcissistic dynamics often bypass this process because reflection threatens the grandiose self-image. It is easier to replace the mirror than to examine the face. So a new person enters the scene. Often this new relationship begins with intensity. Rapid attachment, idealization, exaggerated compatibility, dramatic public affection, future promises, constant visibility. To outside observers, it can look like true love. But intensity and intimacy are not synonyms. Intensity is fast, stimulating, and theatrical. Intimacy is slow, honest, and tested by time. Narcissists frequently prefer intensity because it creates immediate emotional returns without requiring deep vulnerability. There is also a symbolic function to the new person. They may serve as proof that the narcissist is still desirable, still wanted, still winning. In some cases, the new relationship is less about connection with the new partner and more about messaging to the old one. It says, "I am fine, I am admired, I was never the problem." Whether spoken aloud or not, this can be part of the performance. This is why survivors must be careful not to compare themselves to the replacement. Comparison is one of the most effective psychological traps. You are comparing your private experience of reality to their public display of illusion. Those are not equal categories. You saw backstage. Social media shows the stage lights, and patterns usually repeat. Because if the underlying structure remains unchanged, lack of empathy, entitlement, manipulation, emotional shallowness, need for control, then the new relationship is not a new story. It is often the same script with different casting. The opening act may look beautiful. The ending tends to resemble the last one. There is a deeper philosophical point here about hunger. Some forms of hunger can be satisfied by food. Others grow stronger the more they are fed. Validation, when used as a substitute for identity, behaves like the second kind. No amount of praise can permanently fill a person who has no stable relationship with themselves. No partner can heal a void someone refuses to face. This is why the chase continues. New admiration gives temporary relief, not transformation. For the person who left, the task is to reinterpret what you are seeing. Their quick attachment is not evidence that you were unimportant. Their performance of happiness is not proof they changed. Their new attention source is not a verdict on your worth. It is often evidence of dependency on external regulation. Your path is different. While they seek another audience, you have the chance to build an inner life that does not require one. You can heal your nervous system, restore discernment, strengthen boundaries, and learn the difference between charm and character. That work is quieter than their spectacle, but infinitely more valuable, because one life is spent collecting mirrors and the other is spent becoming whole. So if they seem to move on overnight, do not mistake motion for growth. Some people run from emptiness so fast they never notice they are carrying it with them.